Welcome to Follow the Content Leaders, a podcast where we want to learn how leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, coaches, and consultants have built their businesses and exactly what role has content played in their strategies. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon today. Hey, Alon, welcome to Follow the Content Leaders podcast. We're happy to have you here with us today. I'm just going to briefly introduce you. I'm here today with Alon Shrier. I hope I pronounced that
Right.
properly. Shire, sorry. He's the CEO and founder of bazarr.ai, that is an AI deal engine for wholesalers. Welcome to the podcast, Alon. How are you today?
Thank you very much, Monica. I'm great. Happy to see you again.
Happy to see you too. I always like to start the podcast with one quick random question, and that is, what can you not work without in your office? So, is there any specific item or thing that you're using all day long while you're working?
Yes, so I'm pretty old-fashioned, and I can't work without my notebook, even though I wrote
Mm-hmm.
points. So I have to write it down with pen and paper, and then I remember it.
Mhm. Yeah, you'd be surprised about the amount of guests that say exactly that. I'm exactly the same. I have a notebook and I have then all these small pads everywhere and small papers with notes from different things and calls and everything. So I fully understand that. So tell us a bit more about yourself. What is the bazarr.ai that you founded? What are you doing? I would love to learn.
Great. So I'm originally from Israel, and we are
Mm-hmm.
four friends that we know each other already for 10 years. So it all began actually from wanting to group up and create a business together. And we've went and created online brands, and we were also wholesalers ourselves on Amazon. Now, for
Mm-hmm.
the people who listen and don't know, so wholesalers are businesses that are constantly trying to find new products to resell to the target audiences and not
Yeah.
create a brand from their own. And this is what we did for the past 3 years. On the one side, it went pretty well, and
Mm,
managed to rack it up to six figures of sales this year. And on the other
congrats.
hand, we've encountered a horrible world. And
Mm-hmm.
when I say horrible, it means that although the premise is that innovation flooded into e-commerce in general, it's not the case. We're still using the
Mm-hmm.
notebooks, we're still using the Excel sheets, we're still fighting with manufacturers through the WeChat. It's totally manual, old-fashioned world. And that's when we decided to act upon it and actually put our focus on creating technology and entering this innovation into our old-fashioned world. And
Mm-hmm.
we do today, generally speaking, at bazarr.ai.
Super interesting. I have a million questions. You said you're four friends then?
Correct.
How is working with your friends? Like, how do you manage internal decision taking, all of that? Because I come from a lawyer background and I've seen a lot of like corporate conflicts. So, with four different brains into the same ideas, I'm sure you've had that. So, how did you do you manage all of that?
Yeah, so I think that the route to solve any conflict is through communication.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a group of four friends, so each group has it develops its own internal, speaking and jargon and
Yeah.
moments. So for us, communicate is very efficient because we know each other so well, so we know where not to push your friend. And when conflicts come, and it's fun because it's business, so
Mm-hmm.
we know how to speak to each other with respect, and usually, to take the extra mile for your friend. So for us, it's only like a multiplier. Like we're 10x better as a team rather than just random people that grouped up around a business idea.
Yeah, that's so true. And I guess if you've known each other for a long, long time, you kind of know who you're getting into business with, the good and the bad. So I guess you're all well organized in that sense. But I'm just always curious of this, only because I've lived some conflicts in the past that were interesting too. So as you've mentioned, you've been in business now with this AI platform for a while, and before doing more of the wholesaler business by yourselves. So what would you say in this market as a wholesaler could benefit the most from the use of AI? Which area can profit the most from introducing technology?
Yeah, so I will give a little background because it is a very interesting market. The
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce market in general is valued at $6 trillion, and it's huge, and it is like rapidly growing, 15% year over year. Now, the thing is that we don't know, and I didn't know it as a consumer, but once I entered the industry, I realized that a quarter of all of it is by wholesalers. That means that when we go and purchase our favorite brands, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily come directly from the brand, but rather a third party seller, which is a
Yeah.
wholesaler. And the problem that revolves around them is that they need to, it's like a needle in a haystack problem. What they need to do is, out of
Mm-hmm.
the billions of products in the world, there are over 1 billion products only in the US alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And out of the billion products out there, they need to take into account hundreds of different parameters for each product in order to identify a good deal. That means that you need to look at the price point and what are the terms and what is the geographics, where is the inventory, and it racks up
Mm-hmm.
100 different parameters. So it's a needle and haystack problem. You need to find the top 1% for you. And AI is classic for that because AI knows how to harvest a lot amount of data, and it knows
Mm-hmm.
in machine learning, which is one of the use cases of AI, to
Yeah.
predict for a lot of data what will be the outcome. So in other words, we take a manual, cumbersome, time consuming work,
Mm-hmm.
automate it. We're making months of work into a few minutes, and we add another layer where the data de-risks the whole deal. So that means that we give an output of what will be the selling outcome for the wholesaler and what will be the
Mm-hmm.
price point, which price point is always fluctuating. It's like an asset. Products are assets. And
Mm-hmm.
we know how to predict the velocity of sales and the price points for our wholesalers. So this is how
Interesting.
AI in the classic use case, like the core of the business for wholesalers.
Mm-hmm. If I understood correctly, then, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically you're helping them like in all of the investigation process and kind of market testing without testing it in the market, but like information that you need to take into account to then actually make a decision as to where you should market that product or not, at what price you should be marking it, etc. Right?
Correct. And with the extra layer of they actually source the products on a website. So that means
Mm-hmm.
that they buy directly from us and they only need to take care about growing their business and not, as you said, it's the finding the products and analyzing, and like we take in all of the
Mm-hmm.
chain and we batch it up into one place, one platform, which is bazarr.ai.
So interesting. I'm sure that that can help so much anyone that's wanting to enter into this kind of business, or open this new line of business. And then obviously this is the Follow the Content Leaders podcast. So we're going to talk a bit about content. I'm curious as to if you've used content in either of the activities that you've had. So both when you were like wholesalers purely, and now with this new tool that encompasses AI, how have you used content? What role has content played in building both of the businesses?
Great. So actually, it's an interesting topic, and we I learned that
Mm-hmm.
there are two sides of the business. When I look at the two verticals, they're the side of the the fundraising and, let's say, network to
Mm-hmm.
help the business itself, and there's the part of the users and customers of the business. Now, it
Yeah.
might seem like common sense, but I learned that you need two type of contents for each vertical.
Mm-hmm.
What I initially tried is to, to talk to the investors and just showcase how much value we give to customers. But the value for investors is extremely different than to the customers. They don't care about
Yes.
features and stuff. So, as for your questions, yes, we've created now both investor type of content and user type of content.
Mm. So funny you bring that up because it's a critical distinction, right? The type of content you need is different. The goal that you're trying to achieve is different. So everything has to be different as to even the tone of voice sometimes can be adapted because investors are usually more from a corporate background. So they like a bit more professionalism, and then users can be from a whole different background. And that's exactly something that I always define with my clients because in your case, you've identified two audiences, but sometimes there are even three or four depending on the business that you're actually doing. So it's good that you've done this exercise and that you've identified these two types of audiences. And then I would like to know which channels are you using then to direct your content to each of these audiences?
Great. So when we talk about our users, so the world of e-commerce is very network oriented, usually around
Mm-hmm.
Facebook groups, Reddit. It is very, you hear about the new technology and everybody runs to do it. So what we did is we went to Facebook groups of hundreds of thousands of people and then
Mm-hmm.
started posting um, very curated user posts
Mm-hmm.
did, and we also used affiliate because the people that usually created the courses, they have their own communities and they already know how to communicate to their communities. So
Mm-hmm.
once given the content, a written content, they know how to
Mm-hmm.
deliver it to their own, which is a very interesting idea to see how you give someone the not the content itself but rather like the explanatory text and see how they create their own interpretation and deliver it to their end customers, which is a
Mm-hmm.
very interesting experience. And in the investor wise, so LinkedIn, mostly LinkedIn.
Okay, yeah, that's super interesting. User created content, right? Which at the end of the day, it's kind of what you were using. You mentioned affiliates is uh, very big, not so much on LinkedIn or the corporate world, but more, as you were mentioning, when you have users or direct users kind of audiences. And also, again, making the distinction between the two types of content and the two audiences. Have you been creating all of these internally within the company or the people that you have right now, your team, or have you used external help to create all of this content?
Yeah, so what it's made internally first of all. um,
Mm-hmm.
Out of the four co-founders that we are, so we are two operational team and two the
Mm-hmm.
technological team. Now, what really helped me is not to hire external marketing teams, but
Mm-hmm.
rather take advice. By the way, also through LinkedIn and personal
Mm-hmm.
connections, I was able to create content and then ask for advice about the content or doing brainstorming with external people and trying to see if they understand the point, if they understand who are we talking about, and also talking with my customers, wholesalers, and ask them directly, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
So although the content is made internally, I always ask for advice around the content in order to polish it and make it better.
Yeah, I mean, there is no better way to create content than nurturing it from your customers, as you said, just because they are the ones that are suffering from the problem that you're gonna solve for them. So no one is going to explain that problem better than themselves. So you did perfectly by doing it internally, but getting the advice and checking it out with all of these external players that helped you. And then I'm curious, is it yourself that was creating the content out of the four of the co-founders?
Yeah, it's me. I like
Yeah.
creating content.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, what parts did you like the most about creating content, and what parts did you maybe dislike or not enjoy so much?
I really love the fusion in creating content where, let's say, technical and spiritual, I'd say, combine, or artistic parts
Mm-hmm.
combine. What I mean by that is that the core of the content you create, whether it's a post like you write it down, or whether it's a picture or a video, so
Mm-hmm.
it needs to take into account the technical parts, such as you said, like what is the problem, who is your ideal customer profile, etc., etc. And those are very technical. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the edge, like that separates good content and, let's say, medium content, is by the execution of how you wrap it all up and give an emotional impact. An emotional impact is always through, let's say, the spiritual, artistic side, the one
Mm-hmm.
that goes beyond like saying like the most basic, like this is the problem, this is the solution, but
Yeah.
rather being creative. And I really love this fusion. And it takes extra brain power to figure out what is the correct way. And the thing is that I found it is funny that usually in the artistic part, uh, you won't know until you try it out. Like some
Mm-hmm.
seem like, I mean, that won't catch. Like people won't like it, they extremely like it, and some things it's like your baby, but nobody really likes it. So I'd say that you can't really know if it's a bad idea in the creative part until you
Mm-hmm.
literally put it to the face of the customers or the face of who is your audience, to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to test every piece of content, and it's kind of hard sometimes, especially when you put a lot of emotions into the content or try to create something that's very creative or that you've spent a lot of time. But you really need to detach yourself emotionally from content and just see it as one piece of test by each other, and with those results then like kind of assess internally and make decisions. But definitely you need to put that personality into the content to make it stand out, to not make it sound like repetitive, because the ideas that we are sharing, most of them are never 100% original, just because there's nothing left for us to be original with. The only place where we can be original is in this personality and in this creative side that you are mentioning. But that's where you're actually exposing yourself, and that's when it actually gets scary, right?
This is when you're vulnerable. And I would like to add on it that
Mm-hmm.
I found out after, and it's not my first project. I did like several other businesses and projects. Um, and what I've found for me is that you need to show yourself through your work. And by that, I mean that ideally speaking, if you'd watch all of my pieces of content and then I'll
Mm-hmm.
show you another piece of content, I would like to believe that you'd say, "Oh, this is Alon's work. This is like he is behind that post or behind that picture. Like you see me in the work." And this
Mm-hmm.
consistency of, let's say, and you know what? Let's make an analogy. A music like a band, right? That creates music. So
Mm-hmm.
usually you're not only into the specific voice or guitarist or whatever, you're into the voice of the band, right? When they create new content, new albums, so you can hear it's them and
Mm-hmm.
it resonates with you sometimes. And I saw that is extremely valuable in the world of content, that they know it's you behind it. This is what makes it different in the end of the day.
Yeah, it's what ensures that you have a recognizable brand, which is at the end of the day the ultimate goal from creating content, right? Obviously, you want to close clients and you want to gain followers and have engagement. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to build with all these clients, engagement, and followers is a brand. And that brand has to be recognizable for it to stand out. And it's exactly what you were mentioning of how someone can actually identify your content without your name being next to it, or your videos without your name being next to it. So this was super interesting. I just want to add another question to the mix as to, for now, you've been doing everything internally. And if ever you were to hire someone to help you with any of the aspects of creating content, a bit, what would be the qualities that you would be looking on that person that you'd hire?
So I think that he will need, I would love that on the one hand, he will share the values of the company and what we want to do. I mean, as we talked about, communication is key.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love it to be actually like separated creative wise from, because if, okay, let me say it in another way. If I would thought that I am the better marketer or the better content creator, that this is what
Mm-hmm.
I would. So what I would be looking for is someone that have the extra edge over me. So on the one hand, I can communicate with him and tell him what do I think and where do I want to take the company, because in the end of the day, it's our vision, it's the Bazaar vision that they join.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like him not to be entitled to my ideas of how to execute on them.
Mm-hmm.
I would love them to have their own courage to express, their own mindset to express. So in that way, I think it will be like the best of all worlds. Like
Mm-hmm.
it incorporates the core idea of the company, but it's someone that externally knows how to make something that we couldn't create, that they have the extra edge on us. So
Mm-hmm.
what I would be looking for.
Yeah, definitely. Someone that shares a vision, but also can bring something new to the table. Otherwise, you would just keep it internally, right?
Definitely.
Awesome. So, just one last question that I always also like to ask all my guests, because I'm an avid reader. I love to consume content both online but also offline. So, I always I'm looking for book recommendations. So, any book that you've read lately that you've loved, or a book that has impacted you, especially in your life, if you can share that with us.
Sure. I loved from 1 to 0, Peter Thiel. It's like
Mm-hmm.
one of the most core books to read if you want to open a startup.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I love it so much is A, that you get a lot of different stories around different amazing entrepreneurs and how he shares their story.
Mm-hmm.
And the most valuable thing that I loved there is the belief. He says, rather than other books, that you need to create something out of nothing. And it's not usually like
Mm-hmm.
the premise is usually that you build businesses around, data or past experiences in order to de-risk, to de-risk the business. And
Mm-hmm.
he tells that actually the ones who go like all the way to the top are the innovators, that they
Mm-hmm.
enter places that nobody entered and created things that weren't, they created things from nothing. uh,
Mm-hmm.
and this is really aspiring. Like this has really pushed me to create Bazaar in a way.
Cool. So I will for sure check that out. I haven't read it, so I will happily add it to my reading list. This has been great, Alon. So thank you so much for making the time to join us today, and I hope you go on to have a lovely day.
Thank you very much, Monica. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.